I didn't realize that you could have made it through all that walk. That was great.
That was a short walk.
Oh my goodness. I tell you
The
what,
sun was hot.
I need to up my game then.
No,
Welcome.
I
Good to
like
have you.
walking actually. And but let me say good evening to everybody, Glenn and
Yeah.
to Rose.
Good evening.
And let me start with Pastor Ferdinand. You were passionate tonight. Um, but we have to be, because we are dealing with a serious suite of legislation
Yes.
at a
Yes.
time in the history of Barbados where, when we look, for example, at the level of violence and the level of what I would describe as disengagement or the estrangement of some members of this population, it is absolutely important that what we have is the utilization of whatever opportunities there are to get Barbadians engaged. And I noticed that before I even speak to the details there, because that's issues looking at two pieces of legislation. I actually would say that there are three P's that I would want to look at in relation to this: purpose, process, and the particulars of the bill. In fact, the bills, because today I had to take the time, because I didn't realize until the Prime Minister had spoken, to be very honest, that these two pieces of legislation the debate was started in Parliament. And I think it is important for people to recognize this. I actually spent 90 minutes sitting in this chair that I'm sitting now, waiting to get on to brass tacks. I felt it that important.
Wow.
Because when I called, I asked the producer, he told me there were 5 persons ahead of me, because I usually do that to make sure I have a sense of how long it would take me. And I did that because of the nature of what we are talking about. Now, there's a process. As I said, I'm going to look at the purpose, and the titles tell us essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about legislation to govern immigration in Barbados. The second one is about the conditions under which people are granted citizenship and it is revoked. And clearly, against the background of a recent announcement in Jamaica at the heads of government meeting in July, where the Prime Minister of Jamaica announced as the new chair, and it did not apply to Jamaica. He announced that 4 member states of CARICOM were coming together to introduce free movement as of October 1st, I think it is, if I
Yes.
remember correctly. Barbados is included in there. If I remember correctly, it is Barbados, it is
Belize,
Belize, it is
St.
Dominica and
Vincent,
St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Grenadines. Yes.
You
But
sure?
free
You sure it's not
movement,
Montserrat? Montserrat also?
no, there were only 4. I don't know about Montserrat. He mentioned 4.
Yeah,
Montserrat
there
Barbary.
were
is not Montserrat is still
a British
what we call it, a
territory.
territory of a British,
Okay.
British
Oh yeah, yeah.
territory.
You're right.
So
You're right. Yeah.
that right. So that wouldn't fall under that. And so part of what we're doing, I'm sorry, but I unfortunately sliced my finger today, so I'm
Oh
paying a
dear.
little attention to it.
Oh
That's
dear.
when you
So
play with
sorry.
sharp edged tools. I had a sharp knife. Anyhow, so when we look at, that's the context, and so as part of that whole process, what has to happen? The respective governments have to ensure that they have certain legislative frameworks in place. Now, I will not spend time tonight talking about it. I will come back to talk to that. But part of those frameworks would be the need to update the legislation. Now, clearly, that is only one element which speaks to people moving in and out of Barbados.
Yes.
But it is a critical element. And people therefore need to have a sound understanding of what is happening there, right? So when we start to look at the purpose of the legislation is intended to regulate, that's one of the issues. But I would also say that, and I would argue that that is only part of what's happening, because for some time now, CARICOM nationals are allowed automatic 6 months. So outside of those 4 countries where we are saying we're going to have free movement, we have a regime which allows across the region any CARICOM national, with the exception of Haiti, because remember, there was a decision taken in the early days of this government to remove visa requirements for Haitians. And very quickly, after an influx, and they went back and reinstated that requirement, because we know that we know the challenge that can pose. So when we start to look at all of these things, I mean, movement of persons and so on, these things have implications for demands on health services and so on. And I will come back to a list that Dave put up in terms of concerns. But as I said, the 3 things I want to talk about is the purpose, the process, and the particulars of the bill. So right away, what it says to us that when we start to make adjustments to these 2 pieces of legislation, what we have to be sure is that people understand what is going to be legislated, the purpose and the consequences. Because when we look at a list that Dave will show later, after I've made some initial comments, when we need to understand the consequences of this legislation. Now, Glenn and I served as members of the cabinet and as ministers. I served for 11 months, as I said before, as a minister responsible for immigration. And it is a serious issue. You know, when you sought to regulate, people sought to abuse me and talk about xenophobia and all kinds of things. But when you are confronted with the realities of the information before you, you need to understand that decisions have to be taken in the best interest of everybody. And I think I heard the Prime Minister talk about Barbadians first. And so when we do this, we can't take it lightly. And I am very concerned that, given the very serious nature of the issues to be impacted by these 2 bills, the process that is used has to be one that gives Barbadians an opportunity to seriously look at and comment. And it is not about noise. I am offended when somebody calls what I am doing noise.
Noise, yes. I agree.
And I am speaking to issues in a serious way that I would like to hear some noise, as Rose suggested earlier, from those MPs, including the Prime Minister of Barbados, who rarely speaks in Parliament. And I dare say that, as somebody who watches Parliament every week, even if not for the entire sitting, I rarely see her sitting in the chamber. I'm not saying she may not be on the compound, and I understand that prime ministers have other work to do, and that's why they have an office in the precincts. But I rarely see her sitting in there and contributing actively to debate. So my point is that we want some noise, because one of the, in terms of the process, one of the things that we would expect from members of Parliament is that they help to educate citizens to understand that legislation. And so as part of this process, you cannot bring a piece of legislation to Parliament. And I will use the immigration bill. And I say to people that if you go to the website of Parliament and you Google bills and resolutions, you will see a list, and it provides us with some vital information. And I want to walk through this, and I hope that you and certainly Marcia and Dave and my colleague panelists understand that it is important to take Barbadians through this information step by step before we get to the particulars. When a piece of legislation, and I went through this last night, I believe, if I remember correctly, I was talking, I kind of touched on it today. When a piece of legislation leaves cabinet having been certified by the Attorney General that it is ready to go to Parliament, there is a process that is triggered. And part of that triggering is that that piece of legislation should be captured and recorded in the official gazette. That is where persons like yourself and myself, if not before, we become aware that, because that's where people look to see what legislation is going to Parliament. That's one of the places people look. Because everybody, some people will look at that, some people will go on the website. And so what happens, that is the case. Now listen, I will share this. Now when you go on the website, you will see, and once you Google, you will see this is what you find. And this is what I'm reading from, for those who think that as I'm trying to give you an angle where you see Barbados. It says the Barbados Parliament in the corner here, Barbados Pride and Industry Immigration Bill 2025. So I'm not making this up. And under the title, it says download this document. So I am able to go, and let me say now that the Immigration Bill 2025 is a 58-page document.
Wow. Wow.
A 58-page document. So remember that.
Wow.
And under it, for reasons I will explain, there's a note, because normally you get download and then it gives you the history of this bill. In fact, let me give you the history, and then I would explain the note that you will see under there. It says history of the bill, current stage, House of Assembly. And that is because the debate has not completed in the House. Notice date, the 8th of August, 2025, last Friday. Yeah, 2 Fridays ago, because today is Monday. First reading, the 8th of August. First appeared in the official gazette. It says the 8th of August.
8th of August.
Right? Second reading. This is interesting because I think, anyway. Second, I will look at something, but it says the 8th of August. Second reading, the 12th of the 8th of August. I will tell you this. As of 12 p.m. this afternoon, this information was not on the website. I'm talking process. And process is important because at the end of the day, this is where we go to get information. And I can tell you that I started looking for this bill after I heard the Prime Minister make reference to it, and I came off the show last night because and I didn't see it. Because I did not see it this morning, and I think it's important for people to hear this, I made it my business to call the office, the clerk of Parliament, to ask him where I could find it. I said to him, I have searched the website, because he said it should be on the website. And I said, well, I looked, it is not there. And he said, well, he would call the office because it should be on the website. And between calling him, I would have to go on my cell phone to tell you the exact time that I called because it will be recorded there. And 12 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock, I was holding on to get into brass tacks. So, and I said I was holding on for 90 minutes. Anyhow, the point I'm making is this information was not there. For a bill as serious as this, it was not available to Jane and John public. Now, the process also includes what happens in Parliament, because I'm talking about the steps which lead up to it being in Parliament. I recognize that this would have been addressed in a sitting of Parliament. And according to this, the first reading was done, the second reading began on the 12th, which would have been Tuesday, right? Friday, 9th, Saturday, 9th, Sunday,
Yes.
10th, 11th. Right. That would have been Tuesday. And because I had not followed Parliament to the end, I realized that I based on what the Prime Minister said, and in talking to people, I was told, but the debate had started. And I took time while I was holding on to listen to the Minister of Home Affairs. And this is some of what he said. He indicated that the two pieces of legislation were linked and they were going to be taken as a cognate debate. What that means, members of the loyal opposition to Barbados, whoever is listening to me, as Glenn would know, you are going to debate the two bills together. Your debate, your contribution would be around the two bills because they are connected. And as he was saying, these things were inextricably linked. Okay? One, in his word, one informs the other. And I counted in Parliament, I might have missed a person, but at that hour, I counted 10 members of Parliament present for this debate. We have a 30-member Parliament, okay? And in his words, the Minister of Home Affairs says, it is late in the day. He went on to add that I look across and look around, and according to him, he saw his colleagues. He said that they had a lean and hungry look. In other words, they were tired. So 20 people were, well, 19 because you would have had, no, the 10 as far as I remember included the
leader of the opposition?
The speaker. No, the leader of the opposition was not in the chamber when I counted. Okay? And he said that he would try to be as brief as possible as he can while I do justice to these two signal pieces of legislation. His words, not mine. So he recognized that this was signal. Signal suggests important, critical. And so he is saying we have a game changer for Barbados locally. I wrote the word regionally because he used more than one word to describe regionally, and for Barbados on the international stage. Not my words, not my assessment of the legislation, but the admission of the Minister of Home Affairs that this was important. He went on to say that Barbados is at a critical demographic crossroads. And he articulated why. We have an aging population, we have a declining birth rate, and all of these things. And I took time to spell out some of what he said. He talked about the consequences about it. He says it will be erosion of productive population. It will impact in other words, he concluded that with those characteristics, you were creating a shrinking workforce. We're going to end up with a shrinking workforce, erosion of our productive population, threaten our nation's competitiveness. He said we'll limit our ability to attract investment. We will have difficulty filling skills gaps, etc., and give a thorough analysis of the impact of demographic changes on the country. Now, having said all of that, and signaling that this was these were two critical pieces of legislation, pray tell me, why is it that Barbadians, people like ourselves who take the time not to come here and talk foolishness, but to do serious research, did not have access to this? And I will say this. He also, beyond contextualizing the legislation, he also sought to present a picture that there was wide consultation. And I say that is a ridiculous. But then again, we heard him in relation to the interception of communications bill, the wiretapping bill. We know what he said about that too, making absolute statements about the need for a warrant. So he went on to say to us that he spoke, as I said, he spoke for 53 minutes or so, and he went on to indicate that somebody, these were some of the references, somebody who had the opportunity to read the legislation over the past 2 days said to him, "This is beautiful." Well, Pastor Ferdinand, Glenn, you and I didn't have the chance to read and see whether it was beautiful, ugly, or indifferent. You understand? We didn't get to see it. But this person said it was beautiful. He then went on to say that that it went to the Bar Association quite some time ago. I'm not a lawyer and I'm not privy to what goes to the Bar Association, but he said it went some time ago. He also went on to say it went to certain well-known lawyers who deal with immigration matters. And he said then the bill went on the back burner. But before it went on the back burner, it could have shared it with us too, as the public. Okay? He said it resurfaced and it went out to a subcommittee of cabinet. And these were his words. Everybody in cabinet had a say. Every single person weighed in cabinet. Glenn, you can tell me how significant that is if you're looking for wide consultation. He spoke of the collective input it allowed them. So as far as he's concerned, it had wide consultation because they consulted with the very large cabinet that exists right now. But I want to say to the Minister of Home Affairs, to the Prime Minister who spoke to the nation last night, this is not the way to go. Because at the end of the day, and if Dave can put up the list he had before, I would run through some of that. And I want to say that the public has a right to weigh in on this bill, not after it went to Parliament and the Minister of Home Affairs spoke and then said it will go to a special committee. So it's going to go to subcommittee of Parliament for governance, and the debate was suspended. But now,
was there quorum? Was there quorum present? Could you mention that when you counted, including the speaker? I believe you said. Am I right?
Well, but that would be part of the quorum. I believe that person would be part. And
but there were only 10.
Edward Tull is saying that 10 persons. He's asking me what's the quorum. I think it is 9. I would have to go back and check. I was not a member of the House.
Okay.
So I won't be able to that even. You know, I mean, the House is larger than the Senate. The Senate has 21 persons.
Maxine,
yes.
Before you read those outlines that David's putting out, I just a couple of quick points related to your presentation, which I thought was very extensive and very informative. You talk about the official gazette, which used to be a printed physical copy, which you would buy and people kept and filed. Now I understand now it's electronic. I don't think, as far as I know, unless they've gone back to the old system, it is now published electronically. So that further limits the public access to the information.
Secondly, go ahead. You're correct.
I heard the Prime Minister say last night that in future, these various pieces will be broken down into pieces of one and given to the public in bite size so they can understand how come that has not been done with these important pieces of legislation. When are they waiting to do it? And I hope to. I have some information. I have some angles on Carifest I want to talk about, which I can come back later. But I think they are hiding things in plain sight of people. They know full well that most people. I am still a paper person. I believe in my paper. I can write it, my note, dog ear, whatnot. I like to feel it. My reading of something online is not the same as when I have it physically in my hand. psychologically different. But I'm saying they're deliberately minimizing the opportunity people have access to. Not everyone in Barbados has a laptop or phone that can get online. Not everybody does. Not everybody wants to. And they cater to a minority and say, but that, and for Mr. Abrams to outline, or the group might sound a lot, and a big group of person who was supposed to be consulted, but it's a very limited group. So that does not represent, or should we say, represent all of Barbadian society. I noticed he didn't say what were the reaction from any of their groups, like the law bar associations or whatever. He just said they were concerned. What were their positions? We don't hear about these positions. So I get back to it there.
You're correct. I mean, I noted at the bottom, he said that the bill benefited, and I quote, it benefited from wide consultation in cabinet. So I suppose that's the only consultation they want, which is a joke,
Yeah, I mean, you can't consider that to be wide consultation. I mean, these the same people that sitting in Parliament are sitting in cabinet. I mean, that's stupidity of the highest order. Pardon me, I'm not very diplomatic at times with my language, but
no, I agree with you. But that's the kind of thing we're hearing.
Yeah, but you see now the Prime Minister will come and talk nonsense about noise and conspiracy theories and falsehoods and all of that.
Keep dismissing that talk. Keep dismissing that, not serious talk.
I have to say that I ended up not listening to all. But remember, the other thing that was important for me, because I'm looking at the immigration bill. I haven't gone into the citizenship bill yet, because it was a cognate debate. But all that I heard him say for the most, because then I had to, as I said, I was holding on, and as I recognized the callers were going, I then had to stop. But I have to go back and listen to hear to what extent did he touch in his cognate debate on the second bill, the citizenship bill, because I'm looking at the immigration bill, and what is listed here are a number of concerns. People, and Dave can go through them. There are concerns about poll manipulation, voter padding and so on. So there are implications for elections. There are issues relating to pressure on social services.
Social services, yes.
And we're talking only housing and land ownership. For instance, right now, if you're talking immigration, we are talking about people who we've heard about managed migration of workers. And even as we speak, the issue of housing and accommodation for workers, because I mean, if you go on most work sites now, the major projects, I mean, I go to Brandon Beach almost daily, except Sundays. Anybody who knows me know I've been doing that for about 20 years. And there's a major development there.
Oh, yes.
And most of the workers that I've seen look like Latin Americans, either from Central or South America. Yeah. And there's some Chinese and so on. My question is, where are they living? Under what conditions are they living? How is that fit into their pay? I mean, there are a whole set of issues. My other question is, while they are here, what about the social services? Are they able to access medical? Do they have to have medical insurance, or are they what happens? So these are the kinds of things, and we haven't, and you have housing, and now you're talking about people who probably move into the country. One of the issues somebody raised was the issue of the becoming part of the culture and adjusting to the culture that is Barbadian. The whole question of integration into the society. How does that work? So it is not a question of people being xenophobic. I know a certain gentleman used to love to toss that word around, especially when he was talking to me, accusing people of xenophobia. That to me is those kind of cop-out buzzwords that refuse, that are intended to distract you. Let me put it that way. When we call for serious analysis of issues.